Let's take another look at the Sirui Jupiter full frame macro cine lenses. I recently made a review of the 75 and 100 millimeter lenses, but now we're gonna take a look at the full 5 lens kit, and we're gonna see how they perform technically. First, let's take a look at the close focus distance. So how close can you actually get to the subject, since that's a huge part of what makes these lenses so unique. They're cinema lenses, but they're also all macro lenses. Here's the 24 millimeter macro shot. And I can get the entire little Bluetooth speaker here in the shot. I just thought this was a really cool looking speaker, so I figured I'd get some nice B-roll of it. Something so unique about these macro lenses, especially the 24 millimeter, is that you can get really close up on the object, but still have the entire object in the shot. It's just really nice. Okay, macro test on the 35 millimeter. $50 millimeter. There's macro test on the 75 millimeter. You can get fantastically close. Here's the macro test on the 100 millimeter. Look at that. So insanely close up. Absolutely use this to get really fine detail shots. All right, now let's take a look at how these lenses handle lens flares. And I'm gonna point my aperture spotlight directly into them to get the harshest light possible. Similar to basically just pointing the lens up at the sun, which normally you wouldn't really do, but it's worth testing to see how these lenses handle the harshest direct light sources right into the barrel of each of them. Here is the 24 millimeter lens flare test. Definitely washes out, especially right where that hard light source hits. Definitely blooms. Here's the 35 millimeter flare test. And it's definitely washing out, hence the whole need for lens hoods and matte boxes, right? Okay, here's the 50 millimeter lens flare test. If you have the sun up here or another light source, just hitting it just right, it's definitely gonna wash out the image. So be really careful with that. These lenses are definitely something you wanna be using with a matte box if you're gonna be shooting into some direct hard light sources. 75 millimeters, really pinging the light here. Very washed out, boom, directly in. Bottom. Here's the 100 millimeter flare test. Definitely blooming a lot. Washes out quite a lot on these longer lenses. Here's where the sun might be. It might be kind of hitting it at this angle. You can see how much it gets washed out. And then of course, as you go directly into it, definitely very blown out. It'd be pretty unusual to shoot into a light source like this. Next, let's take a look at sharpness of each of these lenses. And we're specifically gonna be looking kind of at the outer edges of the frame, where lenses typically struggle the most and can get a little bit soft. They're usually the most sharp directly in the middle. So let's see how sharp they are on the edges, kind of pixel peep in and see just how sharp they are as you get to these outer edges. The 35 millimeter now. Okay, here's the 50 millimeter. Okay, here's the 75 millimeter. And here's the sharpness test on the 100 millimeter. All right, now let's see how they each handle focus breathing. So rack focusing from close distance all the way out to infinity. And to be honest, for me, focus breathing usually isn't that big a deal to me because you don't really notice it unless you're doing a really large rack focus from your nearest distance all the way out to infinity, which is a pretty uncommon shot. So to me, it's not a big deal, but you are gonna see some zooming in and out as you change focus. So let's take a look at these tests now. Okay, here's the focus breathing test on the 24mm. And you can see I've got the little millimeter chart there in the lower right. It's gonna be pretty hard to tell because it just completely goes out of focus as we go to near infinity here. But you can see it kind of zooming in and out a little bit, especially if you look at the light stand on the left there. You can see it kind of shrinking away as I focus out, and then as I focus into close distance. Okay, here's the 35mm focus breathing test. And the lines at the bottom of the chart are pretty much impossible to see. They're all blurred out, but you can see how much more that is zooming in, especially if you look at the blue paper backdrop there. See how it's filling the frame on the left? And then as I go to full focus, it really zooms out. So there's definitely a fair bit of focus breathing on the 35mm. Okay, here's the 50mm focus breathing test. And again, this is just a little bit ridiculous because it's a macro lens. So just so close to the lens that once you get to the other end, you can almost not even tell that there's a focus chart there on the right-hand side. If you were to do this shot, it'd be pretty artistic of a rack focus from something extremely close-up detail shot to whatever is in the background. Very specialized, so not too worried about a little bit of focus breathing happening here. Here's our 75mm focus breathing test. Let's go to our close focus. There we go, so you can see 3 little white ticks in the lower right-hand corner. But watch as I start focusing back. There's 4, 5, 6, and obviously they start to get really blurred out and just turn into these big bokeh balls and then basically go invisible as I go to near infinity here. So pretty hard to measure exactly how much focus breathing there is on a macro lens, but you definitely can see that it is zooming out and then zooming back in as we get to our near focus. Focus breathing on the 100mm. Let's go to our close focus, and this is just ridiculous. We're so close up on it now. And then as I go to focus out to near infinity, it just completely disappears. Obviously, we're getting some focus breathing. Again, breathing test, pretty ridiculous for macro, but there you go, there you have it. I've done the technical test on these macro lenses for breathing. It's definitely apparent on the 50 through 100mm. I'd say the 24 and 35 are decent, especially the 24. You're really not seeing much focus breathing at all. Now let's take a look at the bokeh that each of these lenses produces. And basically what we want to see is a very round bokeh from edge to edge. That's peak performance. We want to see a limited cat eye where it kind of squeezes down like this, or cutting where it just cuts the bokeh in half. So let's take a look at the results. Right now we're focused on the lights. Let's go fully out of focus to our close distance. These bokeh balls all look pretty nice. You can see a tiny bit of cat eye on the left and on the right. And I'll actually stop down a tiny bit just to show you at T2.8 what they look like. So now you can see all those edges. You're kind of getting that stop sign look. Here's the 35mm. So let's go to our close focus distance. Look at that big, beautiful round bokeh balls right in the dead center. Then of course you're getting those cat eye around the edges. And you can see as we pan the camera, the bokeh balls become more round towards the center. Here's 50mm. Let's go to our close focus. Wow, look at those bokeh balls. They are massive. And they just fill the frame so much. For the most part, they're just staying really, really beautifully round. All right, here's the 75mm, and this only opens up to T2.8. So let's see what kind of bokeh we get. Wow, absolutely massive. Let me move the camera down here so you can see just how big these are. You can see these kind of interesting lines. And I noticed that once I just focus out of here just a tiny bit, they disappear. See? And here's 100mm. This one only opens up to T2.8 like the 75mm, unlike the rest of the other lenses that open up to T2. So let's go to our full close focus. Wow, the bokeh is so big, it is absolutely covering far beyond the width of the frame. So you can't even fit one bokeh ball. So you can imagine if you're filming something really close up and you had some nice bokeh in the background, look at that. You just get these gorgeous, gorgeous bokeh balls. If you don't want to see any more test footage and you actually want to see some real world results, go watch my first review where I went out and actually filmed with these lenses up in the mountains and got some really gorgeous B-roll. So you can actually see how these look in the real world with people and the sun and foliage and all that kind of stuff. When it comes to pricing, the 24, 35, and 50mm lenses are on sale right now at the time of filming for $799 US. And you might want to hurry and look because usually they're $1,000 each, so you don't want to miss this deal. And the 75 and 100mm lenses should be priced similarly once they're released on Sirui's website. And check out the link in the description below to pick any of them up for yourself. And please help me get to 100,000 subscribers this year by hitting subscribe right now. All right, I'll see you in the next video.